I'm Wendy Carrillo, and this is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. Follow me on Twitter at Wendy Carrillo and catch a podcast of this show available on my blog on power106.com. When we think of South Los Angeles, the first thing that comes to mind may not be that South LA could be, in fact, the next hub for tech innovators and social entrepreneurs. But you heard it here first. That is exactly what my guest this morning envisions. Oscar Menjivar, originally from Watts, started his nonprofit UrbanTXT to help teach inner-city teens the value of technology and skills to be entrepreneurs. Welcome to the show, Oscar.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here with you today. It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's Power 106, Oscar.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I want
to... shout out Power 106. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we'll go to the shout-outs in a little bit. Tell me about this nonprofit that you started to teach young people in South Los Angeles about technology and coding.
Yes, definitely. So our organization, UrbanTXT, which stands for Urban Teens Exploring Technology, what we decided to do is that we wanted to empower young men of color in the inner city to be able to become technology entrepreneurs. And a lot of people say, well, why did you want to do that? I grew up in Watts and went to school in Watts and saw the need for it. Saw the fact that, there was not, the school that I went to did not have technology at the time. And then 10 years later, when I go back to my neighborhood, it's still the same way. But I was a technology consultant myself and realized that in technology, there's not that many of us, Latinos, African Americans, or many minorities, including women, in the technology world. And we wanted to make sure that in this new century, in the 21st century, that we're able to compete, right? That we're able to compete globally and that we're able to compete locally as well. So our program is really focused on let's get the skills up, build confidence in the kids, make sure that they know that they can do it, and start building apps, start building web apps.
Mm-hmm. And I want to get into that conversation about the apps that maybe some of the young men in the program have been able to complete. So before we get to that, though, I want to learn a little bit more about you. You're originally from El Salvador. Whoop, whoop, me too.
I am.
So
yes.
You came to the U.S. as a young child. Tell us a little bit about that, and eventually how you became an IT consultant and the education that you've received.
Yes. So I came here to the United States when I was 7 years old. Migrated from El Salvador. And after that, but when I was in high school, my dad brought an old computer to my house and really didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what a computer was. We didn't have one. It was the first one that somebody gave to my dad. And decided to play around with it, but didn't know how to use it. So I decided to take a computer class at my school. My school had it was a technology magnet program, but in reality, what it really was really just a typing class the entire time I was there. But it really still interests me. I remember one of my teachers telling me to go to Fry's Electronics and kind of look at the store and see what I could learn on my own. So I used to do that once in a while. And that really caught my interest and thought to myself, technology is really what I want to do in the future. So then I went to Cal Poly Pomona, studied computer information systems, and fell in love with computers and really wanted to do something with business, wanted to do something as a consultant. And then after that, I came back to my neighborhood, started doing consulting around Los Angeles. And my passion was how do I use technology to empower the community, right? How do I use this in order to give the community a chance to grow, not just in technology, but economically and also in knowledge. When we talk about Power 106 and knowledge being power, it's, I've always believed in that because we don't have the access, right, to technology. So for me, it was very important to show people that if we get access to technology, we get access to knowledge. If we get access to knowledge, we advance as a community. And,
exactly.
And that's how it started. It was tough growing up in Watts, but it's South LA. But it was a good time. It was a good time just to be inspired by people. And the most important part was I had a mentor. So that was huge. I had a mentor who stuck with me from the 7th grade all the way up to my second year in college. And that made a huge difference, right? Because he was able to guide me, able to tell me how to do certain things and where to go, especially with school and especially in college. And now I'm just giving back to my community.
So you were the first one in your family to go to college, to receive an education here in the United States. And, I'm so glad that you bring up the issue of having a mentor, because I think that's
Hmm.
one of the biggest challenges that young people are faced with, that they don't have
Right.
somebody to talk to, somebody to look up to, somebody to guide them in the
Right.
process. And many of them are doing it for the first time.
Right. Yeah. And for me, it was, that was a huge part that made a difference in my life, because as a first generation college student, I didn't, financial aid, right? Financial aid, what major to choose, how to talk to your counselor, how to even decide what an internship was, right? At the time, it's like, okay, how do I do an internship, and what is an internship? Mis padres me decían, well, no, ¿cómo que vas a trabajar sin que te paguen? Or how do how,
Right.
right, like, how are you going to work without getting paid, right?
What's that about, right?
Yeah, what's that all about, right? But then thanks to my mentor, he would say, you got to get internships. You got to build that work experience, and you got to be able to stay strong no matter how hard things get.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely being in computer science, things get tough, because my first time ever touching a computer was in my first year in college. Like,
Wow.
actually having my own personal computer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my parents borrowing money just to buy me a computer.
Well, I'm so glad that they saw the value in that.
Yeah, and they did. And that was a huge, right? My parents being involved as well was huge for us, but it was a sacrifice. And today I still feel that, a lot of those stories are still true with our community members, right? Being Latinos or blacks in South LA and Watts is still the same, but a lot of times they can't afford a personal computer.
Right,
and,
right.
So it's important that we continue doing that.
It's definitely a real issue when so many people are facing economic hardship and working multiple jobs, trying to pay the rent and put food on the table for their kids, and a computer or something having to do with technology like a smartphone or an iPad seems like such a far distant goal, because the immediate need is really urgent. So, so I wanted to get back to your organization and really, what is the goal, and how do you reach, or how do you target the young people that you're focusing on?
Yes. So our goal is to, build that confidence, build those leadership skills, build entrepreneurship skills, and use technology as a tool, right? So we use coding, computer programming, as a tool to engage them and to empower them to feel that they can change the world. And how do we do that? It's very simple. I tell people the way we go about it is we go to the schools and recruit students, and we tell them that we're looking for the best of the best. And a lot of times students think, oh, well, you're looking for a 3.5 GPA or 4.0, and we say no. We want somebody who's hungry to do something different in the world. We're looking for somebody who's going to put in the work, who's going to stay committed for 15 weeks and learn how to do this. And last year, Wendy, to our I guess surprise in kind of a way, we had 150 applications.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
How many schools?
It was about 10 schools that we recruited at.
And you're mostly targeting high schools, right?
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so that was, to me, that was it. It was like, there's a demand for this in the inner city, and there's kids who want to do that. I had kids come up to me and say, I want to be the next Steve Jobs. So for us, is to do that, build that confidence, right? For them to dream big, for them to say, I'm going to take this powerful tool that I have, and then give it back and give my community something back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going back in the 90s, it was mixing tapes, right? Becoming a rapper, becoming, doing all, your friends, and, but right now now we got to tell them, like, there's another avenue, right? You can become an engineer in music, or you can program that app that's going to produce music, right? Or hopefully one day a Power 106 app.
We have a Power 106 app, but I like the idea. I think it's really just really interesting and really motivational, because these kids come up to you and say, I want to be the next Steve Jobs. Well, how do they become that when they don't have the tools necessary?
Right. And that's very important, because the other thing is our schools got to realize that, that's something we have to give them. When I first started doing this, 3.5 years ago, I remember going to one school and say, I want to do this at your school. And I remember them saying, well, our kids can learn HTML or CSS. That's too hard for them. And that wasn't, to me, that was never, I never could imagine somebody saying like our kids can learn, they shouldn't be learning this.
Because it's too hard.
Yeah, because it's too hard.
It reminds me of the Jaime Escalante movie. They can't learn calculus because it's too
Right.
hard. Okay,
Yes.
Stand and Deliver all over again.
Yeah, all over again. It was, well, now you bring it up. Yeah, it's very much similar. And I have 7th graders doing HTML, 6th graders doing HTML and CSS and doing computer programming. So it's not hard. What we tell our kids is that, look, this is not hard. It's just a lot of work. That's all it takes for us to sit down, do it, give them the resources, give them the tools, open up doors for them to succeed, right? Open up the doors for them to say, show me somebody that can help me do this, and I'll continue doing it myself. And we've seen that excel. I have a 9th grader walking around Watts right now who has created the first iPhone app in Watts.
Tell me about that. Tell me about this first iPhone app that was created.
And so
it was created by
a kid named Jonathan. And one of the essential questions that we give our kids in the program is identify a problem in your community and solve it through technology. Very simple. That's all we tell them. We don't tell them what to do.
Okay.
This kid, they do some research. This kid came in, and he said, I don't know where to volunteer. And my friends don't know where to volunteer. High school's asking me to put volunteer hours, but I don't know where to go.
It's not part of the requirement, right, to graduate is to do volunteer hours with LAUSD.
It is part of the requirement. So, therefore, he said, we're going to build a volunteer app. And this volunteer app is going to match high school students to organizations. We'll let organizations be in our volunteer app, and we'll let high school students choose where they want to volunteer. And it's all going to be done by an algorithm.
Wow.
So the kid developed this. And he put it out there. So we have the first stage of that app. It's out there right now. You can't download it yet because we're still testing and doing a lot of that. But that's what it is. It's that type of solutions that they have. The other one was a kid came in and he said, Oscar, my parents don't know where to go buy healthy food. I don't know where to go. They tell me in school that I need to eat healthier, but if I go to the store next door, there's not any healthy food. So he said, I'm going to develop a map that identifies healthy places to eat around South LA and Watts. So now there's a map where you can actually go and see who has healthy foods. And we're still working towards that in the fall, so they can continue developing that. So again, right, we're not telling them. My thing is, let's not tell our kids that they can't do something. Let's just tell them, if you put your mind to it, if you sit down and commit yourself to it, you're going to do amazing things. And they know that. They know they can do it.
My guest today is Oscar Menjivar, who is the founder of UrbanTXT, that's UrbanTXT, a nonprofit based out of South Los Angeles, which is helping young teens in the inner city learn the value of technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So, Oscar, what are some of the challenges that you're facing as a nonprofit? How do you manage your day-to-day with your organization?
The biggest challenge right now, just to be very frank, is funding. We did the LA 2050 campaign, and we saw, for people who are not familiar with the LA 2050 campaign, it was a campaign with certain organizations who were going to get $100,000 to be able to fund their programs. So we did that campaign.
So it was a $1 million challenge to organizations in Los Angeles, and there were several different categories in which there were like education or social entrepreneurship or building and housing. And so environmental issues. And so you competed.
We competed. So there was 279 applications that went through it. We were top 3 at one point.
Oh
I believe we ended up at top 5. But this is what's crazy. It wasn't us only doing it, like our core staff. It was the community. It was the kids saying to their teachers, to their parents, go vote for this organization. You had our staff going door to door getting signatures, right? And it was a no-brainer. The community was like, yeah, I want my kid to do this. I want my kid to be a computer scientist. And at that time, we didn't get the grant. So that is our biggest challenge right now. And so we decided to take matters into our hands and now do a crowdfunding campaign. And we're currently in our crowdfunding campaign. We've raised so far about $3,000. We believe we can reach $100,000, in the next couple of months, and to continue doing this.
Because so where's the information for crowdfunding?
So crowdfunding, they can go to our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook.com/Urban Teens Exploring Technology, and they also can go to Tiny, which is TINY.cc/South LA, and they will see the crowdfunding campaign there. So if anybody wants to go, I encourage people to go and help us and raise the money. Anything really helps, $10, $20, $100. And the community is behind us. We need to get them involved with this, and now it's the time. If we don't do this now, we're going to be talking 10 years from now where, we're behind in technology. 10 years from now, if we don't involve our kids in developing apps right now, in knowing how to code, 10 years from now, we're going to be saying, as a community, we're behind because our kids don't know technology. And we can't go through that cycle all over again. In the 90s, I remember people saying, well, we don't have enough books, right? We don't have enough books, or we don't have enough something, desks or teachers. Now, I don't want to be here 10 years from now and hearing people say our kids can't get a job because they can't code. I want to be able for us to say, well, as a Latino community, as a Black community, we need to have apps. We need to learn how to code and build our own jobs, build our own companies. And that tech hub that you mentioned in the beginning, it's really what it is. The kids, and this is the kids have a vision that they said we can make the first Silicon Alley. Our kids from South LA call it a Silicon Alley. Because they say, we can do this. We take coding to a whole different level. We take the whole, everybody battles for rapping in the streets. So everybody raps that way in the streets. Well, in the classroom, the kids created a battle, a code battle. We call it a code battle, where they get up in the classroom and they challenge each other with code. And they challenge each other. Yeah. So we take all those elements and we create a culture where people are innovating in South LA and Watts, and people are creating the future. So that's really what it is giving the kids, our community in South LA and Watts, Compton, an opportunity to say, let's go ahead and do it. Let's bring the next Dr. Dre, but not of music, right? Let's bring the Dr. Dre of technology, so he won't be, trying to get somebody else to build Dre beats for him. It'd be more like let's get the kids to do the app. Let's get somebody from the community who works hard, who has work ethic, and build something amazing for us.
will.i.am is an artist that is actually also learning to code, and he's been very outspoken about the need for young kids in the community, because he grew up in Boyle Heights in the projects, to be more knowledgeable about creating apps and coding, and how really that is the way of the future.
Yes. And I can't wait. I can't wait to meet will.i.am, because I think he's leading that push in Boyle Heights. And we need to lead it everywhere, right? We need to lead it everywhere, and I'm very grateful that he's doing that. Now we got to figure out, how do we bring that kind of movement to South LA, and and I think that there's ways of doing that. I don't know if you heard, there was an investment at USC where Dr. Dre, funded something at USC to do a lot of this technology innovation stuff, and so I think they're our community members are seeing that there's a need for that, and they're trying to push that. It's just getting it to the right kids, getting it to the right people to be able to push it, right? We have 30 developers basically in South LA that are walking around, and now we need to develop that more, develop that talent, and nurture that talent. If we go up to Silicon Valley, you can see that there's a lot of hacker spaces, innovation centers, that really develop this culture of creating something, right, with technology. And South LA doesn't have that yet. And we need that in South LA. We need that in Watts. And I think we're there. In the summer, we created 8 different products. And like I said, right now, I can probably say we have, developers ready to develop. Just yesterday, we had kids at a computing center hacking away at a computer who needs to update their operating system. and they're doing it. It's not us. And to me, we got to give them those skills. So, I like I said, I'm very proud, and I guess say that the work that Will.i.am is doing is really bringing a lot of light into this.
Right. So the school that you mentioned is called the Andre Young Academy for Arts, Technology, and Business of Innovation at USC, which they donated $70 million to start this new program at USC. So it's definitely really incredible. So I do have a critical question for you, Oscar, and that is, why young boys? Why not girls as well?
Yes. When we first decided to do this, we looked at the trend of how much in trouble our young men get into. And we saw that 55% of them are dropping out, right? And 70% of those that do drop out, they end up incarcerated or unemployed. And as we have seen, the president himself has said we need to help our young men. We need to figure out to give them role models, to give them people who can help them on a day-to-day basis. Honestly, I believe there's a stigma, right? There's something that says our young men from the inner city should just go play football, go rap, go do something like that. Not everybody's going to become a rapper or a football player, right? So to me, it's let's start developing that culture. And for us, it was the boys. Let's figure out the boys. I saw a lot of my friends, young men who ended up either one in jail, who now is a lifer, another was shot, and I wish they would have had more mentors like I did. I wish they would have been a little more lucky and would have somebody who would have been there with them 24/7, either on the phone or or helping them out and giving them advice. So for us right now, that's close to my heart. And I think we need to do something to strengthen the confidence that our young men don't have at this point.
Fair enough. I just thought that I would ask. And maybe the next step would be to incorporate young girls.
Yes, I think, the next step is when we have that. Currently, like I said, currently our capacity just gives us to do as much as we can on a very, shoestring budget. And we know that once we build this culture, it's going to spread out, right? It's going to spread, because I think that's what our communities do. Our communities really know how to share. They know how to innovate. They have ideas, and they'll put in the work if we give them the opportunity to do that. So I believe that it's not just going to be boys. It's going to be everybody. It's going to affect everybody. And what's awesome about this, Wendy, is that once we figure it out here in South LA and in Watts, and we see how we can actually have a model, and people can see the model, they can come and visit the model that is working, we can replicate it to the nation, right? We can go someplace else and do it. So it's not just a vision for South LA, it's for the nation. It just happened to be that I grew up in South LA. It happened to be that I grew up in South LA in Watts, and I know that this is the way that our future is going, right? So for me, it's really important that we understand that this is a model that we can use. And, people call me all the time and ask me how you guys are doing it. And my answer to them is just don't focus on coding itself. Focus on how do we engage the student, how do we engage the kid to believe in himself first and believe that they can make a difference first. Give them the tools and let them go make a difference. And, that's the beauty of it.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and for the work that you're doing out of South Los Angeles and taking some time to talk to the Power 106 listeners and myself and letting us know exactly how the future is being built out of South Los Angeles. Any final thoughts from you, Oscar?
The final thought is this. As a community, knowledge is power. And we got to give that knowledge to our kids so we can be ahead in the 21st century.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Oscar.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. My guest this morning was Oscar Menjivar, founder of UrbanTXT, that's UrbanTXT, a nonprofit based out of South Los Angeles, which is helping young teens in the inner city learn the value of technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. For more information, you can visit their website at UrbanTXT, that's UrbanTXT.com, or follow them on Twitter at UrbanTXT. I'm Wendy Carrillo, and this is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. You can follow me on Twitter at Wendy Carrillo and get a podcast of this show through my blog on power106.com.